All right, well, I want to welcome everyone to the 4th annual Residential Net Zero Energy Conference. Take control of your energy future, the Net Zero Workforce Development Session. This has been put on by our planning partners, who hopefully they can all turn their cameras on and say hello. First up, we've got David Gard from the Michigan Energy Efficiency Contractors Association. We've got Larry Kaufman from the Michigan Geothermal Energy Association. We've got John Freeman from the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. They've been with us since the beginning. We've got Michael Clement from Architectural Resource. We've got Dave Dye, former GreenHome Institute chair of our education committee, DFD Architecture. And then we've got Brian Imus standing in for Ashley here from our newest planning partner as of last year, the Illinois Green Alliance. So what I have to say is a huge thanks to our planning partners, and don't leave today without becoming a member of one of these great organizations or giving Michael and Dave a call to help you design your next dream net zero conference. Don't leave, you got to contact one of them. That's the promise we're making, right? So big thanks to them. And as always, our sessions are approved for continuing education units among many different CEUs, as well as our internal certified green home professional designation under the energy and place pillars for this session. We have submitted to AIA to hopefully get CEUs in the health, welfare, and safety, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. And before we get started, I have to thank all of our amazing sponsors of our Net Zero Conference. Many of them have been there from the beginning: Mitsubishi Electric, April Air, Build Equinox, Rockwell, Panasonic, Rheem, Aware, Indo. They all have amazing products that are going to help you achieve net zero, zero carbon. And we got to make sure our buildings are healthy, right? What good is it if we hit net zero and have an unhealthy home? And so some of these great folks here are going to also help with keeping efficiency, but also being healthy and having good air quality. And we're going to hear from some of them later too about how they're helping train the next workforce or the existing workforce on ensuring we hit net zero. So with that, I am going to hand it off to our speakers. We've got some questions lined up for all of our speakers here today, and we're going to go in order with each of them. And so I'm super excited to have Jennifer Mefford, who will be joining us on demand, at least in this case, Maddie Kamle, Matt Bloomquist, Patrick O'Boyle, and then unfortunately Don Stevie may or may not be joining us a little bit later. I don't know if you're out there or not, Don, but I think he had something come up, and he's out there. He's out there doing it. He's out there educating. He's training the next generation. So we'll have to give him the pass. He couldn't make it. He's doing the work, right?
He's
and that's
here,
okay. So we're going to hand it off to them here in a second. But just real quick, you can catch all of our former net zero conferences on demand online on our website. And I just want to remind everybody, you know, what is net zero? And it's important to keep that into context before we go live. And a net zero home is a home or a building that produces as much renewable energy as it uses in the course of a year. And so that's, you know, an important thing to think about. And what does that mean? Well, really, it's three aspects. It's weatherization, it's electrification, and it's solarization to help lead to decarbonization across the entire nation. So those are the things you need to remember. These are the things that we need to do. But I think that, you know, ultimately we are absolutely kidding ourselves that even if we had all the money in the world to do this, even if we had the policy in place to do this, that we just don't have the workforce to do this. And things are changing. I was really excited to see this latest post here from NPR about how construction trades are taking off within the industry as far as college education goes. Really heartening to see that information. Just came out the other day. And so people, you know, the new generation is coming. They're getting trained, but are they getting trained on the things that we need them to be trained on in regards to net zero? And that's where we come in. That's the change we can make. And we're just sort of getting started here with this group. So I'm super excited to have you all be joining us to kickstart this conversation. And so now I'm going to hand it off to our speakers and let them take the floor here, and then we're going to get into your questions. So, first up, we've got Matt Bloomquist. I'm going to have you just introduce yourself. I'm going to have them all introduce themselves, where they're coming from. You don't want to hear from me anymore. And so the first question I have for you, Matt, is, tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and your program. And thanks for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Brett. You want me to pull up my slides too for this part too, Brett?
Sure, yeah, if you could do that, and then if everyone else who's not talking or sharing, they got their cameras too. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I'm Matt Bloomquist. I teach at Taylorville High School here in Taylorville, Illinois. For any of you familiar with the state of Illinois, I am just south of Springfield, so we're right in the middle of the state. I do teach the building trades, and what we do special is we actually build houses with students. We've had this program since 1969. It did get put on pause a few years ago, then we relaunched in 2019. Currently, we're on the 28th house of the program. When we relaunched, I wanted to put an emphasis on building better. This is something when I was a contractor, I was always paying attention to and never really got to dive into, but this was my opportunity to dive into the building science side of things. And thanks to a lot of notable people in the building science community, they really took me on board and helped me. So I'm very much a student as much as I am a teacher when it comes to this. So if you guys want, easiest way to follow me though is on Instagram. I post everything that the kids are doing and whatnot. So a little bit about what we do and what we do as far as where we align with this community and net zero. Now, to be fair and honest at the beginning, we have not built a net zero house, but we're taking the steps for a house to become net zero. So I guess you could say we're net zero ready potentially. Let me see if there's a button. Here's our houses that we've built in the bottom one there on the white house you see there. That's house 27. That's when we started in 2019 and we finished up this October, September, October. It got stretched out over 2 years thanks to COVID and remote learning situations and stuff, but we were able to work through those and finish that house. The one above there, the green one with the red roof, with all the zip system, what you're going to see, that's house 28. That's one we're working on. We are farther than what you see on there, but that was the most current outside picture I had. It's one thing great about us. We get hands-on training. It's an opportunity for the kids to fail, to try things. We like I said, we put an emphasis on high performance building and building science. What's awesome about this, they creates a better understanding of the process, the materials and the tools used to create this. And also extra part of this is they get to build every part of this house. So they're involved from foundation to the trim and everything in between. So they get to see how this all ties together. And if that involves the connecting the points for going for net zero, they get to understand and see how that all comes together, all the way from air sealing, from when we put the framing to the foundation, and then all the way down to when we, install the air exchange system for the house itself, the ventilation system. Here's just a collage of pictures of students working on the job sites. Like I said, they get do a little bit of everything. One thing we also do that's you'll see the yellow playground stuff. We also try to do a little bit of community service for our schools, and we help out with the schools and stuff. So that's just an extra bonus. You also see a picture there. Many of you may be familiar with Jake Bruton. He came up here and walked us through the first blower door test we've ever done. We actually do a blower door kit from Retrotech. You'll see the picture behind me. On that first house, that white house, we did our first test. We were at 0.58 ACH 50. So that was with all the windows, doors, and I think the bath fence in. We hadn't poked all the other holes in and stuff. By the time we got done though, we finished off at 0.9. This current house, you'll see the picture behind me on my screen and behind my head. We just did the blower door. to check just the envelope of the house. So we had no windows. We had only 2 doors in. That was our only true 3 doors, the crawl space hatch. We're actually, we connect our crawl space to the house. So we only had 3 purposeful penetrations through the envelope. And we were sitting at 0.4 ACH 50. We have now started installing windows, running rough plumbing, electrical, all that kind of stuff. So we will retest and go and hunt down holes and reseal and try to keep this number low.
Well, thanks, Matt. We're going to circle back to some more specific questions on net zero and get to the interest, but thanks for joining us and giving a quick introduction. So
you're welcome.
Yeah. So Maddie, I'm going to hand it off to you next.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to also pull up my slides. Okay. So I am the Weatherization Assistance Program specialist in the state of Michigan. So I'm here talking about the Weatherization Assistance Program and our perspective and involvement in net zero and workforce development. For those of you who aren't familiar with our program, we are federally funded primarily through the U.S. Department of Energy, and this is our stated mission up on the screen. We focus on energy efficiency in homes of low-income households, and we secondarily ensure health and safety. So those are the types of measures we do. We do primarily energy efficiency installations, and then we do secondarily health and safety measure installations. To give you an idea of scope of the program, I have some numbers up there. In Michigan, we are the 2nd largest DOE direct grantee in the country, and we do anywhere from between 1,000 and 2,000 homes a year, depending on our allocation. We estimate from a national valuation that homes save about $283 a year. And if they have base loads installed, they save more. And that's the national valuation. We would also estimate that Michigan savings are higher. In Michigan, the program is administered through the Department of Health and Human Services. Our bureau is called Bureau of Community Action and Economic Opportunity. We're the primary funders of the community action agencies in Michigan. We have 25 community action agencies that run the program in all 83 of our counties. So all of Michigan's territory is covered. And we are mainly funded by DOE funds, which is different than most states and territories. Most states have a majority of LIHEAP funds. So LIHEAP funds are through the federal HHS, and they're a bit more flexible than DOE funds in the Weatherization Assistance Program, which is important in some of the other comments and questions that are coming up later in the presentation. Our state staff are responsible for complying with DOE rules and writing policy and rules that are in compliance, but also innovative for our state. So we do rule changes within our discretion within their regulations. And then we also are responsible for oversight and monitoring. We're responsible for training and technical assistance for the 25 agencies. And we also do the statewide vision and direction to keep all 25 agencies moving toward our stated missions and focus. I think that's it for my introduction, Brett.
Thank you, Maddie. And then we've also, as I mentioned, got Patrick here. So Pat, just again, tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, and welcome.
Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick O'Boyle. I am with Michigan Saves, which is a nonprofit green bank based here in Michigan. I operate out of Lansing, but we cover, just as Maddie said, all 83 counties within the state of Michigan. We provide access to financing for renewable energy and energy efficiency measures, both residential and on the commercial business side. I'll get into what we do a lot of later. We're active in training our contractors. We have roughly 900 around the state of Michigan now that are authorized within our program. I'm also on the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association Board of Directors. And the program was propped up by Department of Energy funds, as well as grant funds from the Michigan Public Service Commission in 2010. And that supports our ability to lend private capital and leverage those funds to making these improvements around the state of Michigan. So I'll get to I only have a few slides that I'll get to later, but that's the quick intro. Thanks for having us, Brett.
Hey, thanks, Pat. Don, are you on here real quick to give us a introduction now?
I'm here, but it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Oh, well, that's all right. We'll just, we'll keep on moving, so.
But I am ready, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your program here.
I'm Don Stevie. I've been with GRCC as full-time professor for the last 15 years. I've also taught adjunct here since '99. I've also done some adjunct for Ferris State University as well in their construction management program. We run at least 30 to 40 students through our program each year. We have 13 HVAC classes, which we offer, which students can participate in. Once they've completed all of the HVAC classes, they receive a certificate of completion. They can then choose to continue on to complete their associate's degree here at GRCC. Our program also articulates with Ferris State University, where students can take their associate degree and fully transfer it to Ferris, in which to complete their 4-year bachelor's degree in HVAC engineering technology. What we're finding here is that the word is out. Our program is full. We continually have full classes. Actually, most of them have waiting lists. So now we're pushing into offering more classes throughout the summertime, just simply to try to get more students through the program, which is great. It's been very rewarding. In addition to basic heating, air conditioning, refrigeration, hydronics, we also cover geothermal, we cover solar energy, we get into mini split technology, which is ductless air conditioning and heating, which are heat pumps. And so our students essentially get an overall view of pretty much everything that's out there. We don't expect them to know everything, but we would like to expose them to as much as possible so that when they are in the field, they can hopefully say, yes, I've seen that, or yes, I've worked on that. Essentially, the HVAC program in the industry, I say, has become much like the medical industry in that everyone is pretty much a specialist. And what I mean by that is when most students graduate from our program, they go into the field and pick or choose whatever discipline they wish to pursue. Some guys may be boiler experts, some may be hydronic. A lot of them will get into the temperature control or automation field. And, you know, we encourage that as well, because now that they have the foundation for understanding the physics behind what goes into heating and cooling, as well as the mechanical side, they then can take that knowledge and continue it on by learning more about a specific manufacturer, specific company, how their product works, how they're able to install, service, troubleshoot it. So it's been very rewarding. And I see this continuing on for at least the next 5 years. A lot of industry experts have said that there's going to continue to be a shortage in the job labor market, especially in skilled trades, for at least the next 5 years. So we'll see what goes on from there.
Thank you so much, Don. I'm glad you could join us. Strangest thing, I could see you, but I didn't see your mouth moving for a while. So who knows? Weirder things have happened, but we'll see if we can get your video working on the next one. So Jennifer Mefford also, unfortunately, we really wanted to have her, but she is at a huge conference right now in person in the real world. And so she still gave us a little bit of information that she wanted to share with you all. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks. I'm Jennifer Mefford, and I am a consultant, and I primarily focus on two areas, workforce development and market development and growth. I work with a group of contractors and workforce that are all in the union construction industry across different labor sectors. So today I wanted to share with you a picture of the electrical contractors network that I work for and their workforce at IBEW in Michigan, as well as kind of our picture across the country. Your conversation today regarding net zero and kind of some of the new technologies coming into the space to help elevate that category, I think really fall within this sector. So I wanted to talk specifically about those today.
Right. Well, thanks, Jennifer. And so I think a lot of you kind of went into the next question, no doubt, quite a bit. So maybe just add a little bit more to it. But the next question is, really, how does your program fit into the residential net zero? Do you cover it at all holistically? And by that, I mean, are you dealing with building shell, HVAC, solar, or are you just focused on a portion of something? Do you make connections between all the systems for net zero? So Matt, we'll give it to you first.
Yeah. So as I briefly touched on it there in the intro, we haven't done a full net zero project yet. I would love for that to happen. But we focus on, especially air sealing, obviously, big step, insulation. I'll show some quick pictures of the kids doing that. We, show the importance of why we air seal, obviously for energy reasons, and then also for moisture reasons, control. And then when we finally get to do the blower door test, they actually get to go hunt down and find the air leaks, and then they can understand what that all means. So for us, it's kind of like what Don was saying. We try to get a basic understanding of the whole process of the house and building a better built house. And no one's going to come out a master in this, but they'll have a better understanding of why, are we putting the Siga tape down there from the foundation to the sheeting, and taping our seams and running the beads of caulk underneath the sill plates, and details like that. So that's our kind of our purpose too, is to give the introduction of how this all connects. And then once we come and install our ventilation system, then they understand how that works. And they've already started to see, now that we're in a tighter house during construction, how just a little bit of heat that we do, temporary heating, stays in the house longer, and how that affects things. So that's kind of where we make our connecting points at.
Thanks, Matt. And Matt, what within your program within the state, what connections are made holistically tying into sort of the net zero movement?
Sure. I will show you all a visual. These are the measures that are typical in weatherization, in the weatherization assistance program work. So primarily mechanical and shell are going to be the energy conservation measures. Then we have typically health and safety installations, including ventilation systems, and often base loads are installed. So I would say, to answer your question specifically, Brett, HVAC and shell, in terms of energy efficiency measures installed, then we can, in our program, and I know we're speaking to people nationally, so depending on the state that the entity is in, electrification can be a possibility or maybe even a priority in a weatherization assistance program, and solar or renewable installations can also be. A big component as to how is the type of funding that comes into the program. So under DOE, electrification is somewhat of a secondary priority. It's more only if there are energy savings associated with it can it happen. It's not the primary focus of the program. And same with solar and renewables. But if, for example, a state has primarily LIHEAP funding, they can create these focuses as more of a priority. So some states you'll see like Colorado, Colorado probably has the most precedent for solar installations, but other states are doing it. And electrification is also coming into some states' weatherization programs too.
Thank you so much, Maddie. And I'm glad you really hit on the weatherization point, because especially in existing homes, it's just so underfunded and so there's so little capacity. A lot of times we just look to electrification and solar and really have to leave the shell alone because we just don't have that workforce. We don't have the funds anymore. So I'm really glad to know what you all are doing there and to really focus in on that as a resource in this state and all the action agencies, across the country. So Pat, again, where is Michigan Saves and your work kind of tying everything together holistically from a net zero standpoint?
This couldn't be a better teed up question here for us. The answer to this one is yes. We can be a one-stop shop for producing financing for an entire building shell, windows, starting with the HVAC, the insulation, solar PV. We essentially have an eligible measure list that's 5-6 pages long that our contractors have access to, that you can, obviously we want to start with the energy efficiency side of things is the way to go, and then add on these other ones. So this is kind of just a quick overview of what we can offer the homeowner on this. So it's an unsecured personal loan. We've recently added much more value to it. We can now go up to $100,000 for those deep, comprehensive projects. The loan term up to 15 years is really helpful on the payback for sure on some of these solar projects. We're seeing a large increase in battery storage as well. It's still not a huge number, but certainly is something that in the last 18 months probably we've seen. Our loan loss reserve allows our lenders to go as low as 600 for credit scores. So ones that are maybe just above where Maddie can help in the state of Michigan. And the rates are fairly competitive for an unsecured loan product, where I think some of you in other states may have access to capital as well, but we get that comes up quite frequently of, can we do this in other states? Because it is a very efficient way to do it. And our most common is still probably HVAC. But we're seeing a wider scope. Windows is something we're seeing a lot of, and certainly solar, based on where we're at in the state of Michigan here with the utility agreements and such. That's something that's also considered. But overall, yes, the short answer is we can help residents in Michigan achieve residential net zero.
Thanks, Pat. And Don, can you just, and you talked about it a little bit, but just reiterate some of those points on sort of the holistic approach, especially at the college in general, I know, that you're making for construction for students.
Oh, the host has asked you to start your video. Let's see if it'll work now. Oh, my light blinked. And apparently not. All right. Matt, I'm glad you threw up that picture of a blower door, because we actually have one that we use in the curriculum. I also teach a class in blueprint reading that we've expanded to include blueprint reading and HVAC design. Our students need to understand and learn how to perform a load calculation on a house, that includes ventilation requirements. In the past, we have had contractors come in and demonstrate using our blower door on how it works, how to set it up. And a blower door essentially is the best method to determine how much infiltration comes into the house for ventilation requirements. In addition, we talk about obviously different types of building materials and how they affect heat transmittance. And it's been pretty interesting over the last 5 years, some of the leaps and bounds that the construction industry has done to improve sealing houses and making them more efficient. Along with that, though, comes a downside in that in some cases we can make a house too tight. But the industry has already figured out a way around that by using what's called an ERV, or energy recovery ventilator. And what that does, in case there's folks out there who don't know, it essentially takes a portion of outdoor air, brings it into the house, but preheats and pre-cools it by using air that's exfiltrated or exhausted out to allow the home to have a balance of pressure, but it also brings in a certain amount of fresh air that'll reduce or improve the indoor air quality and reduce any chances of mold and mildew or certain nasties growing. So again, that's been a big part of our curriculum, is including the building trades, but also I think it's really important that nothing happens until we do a load calculation, because how on earth can someone expect to size a furnace or an air conditioner if they don't know what's required?
All right, thank you, Don. And so I'm going to hand it off to you, Jennifer, to tell us how the electrical union kind of ties everything together.
Great. So if you think about NECA and IBW, they're a network of contractors. Our NECA contractors are all electrical contractors. They work across different market segments. It could be commercial, industrial, but it certainly also covers residential. IBW provides the workforce of electricians for that scope of work. The Electrical Training Alliance that you're seeing on the screen is our training partner at the national level that supports our 288 training centers around the country. As you're seeing on your screen, if it's energized or it communicates, we do that work. We certainly are very active in the solar space, wind energy, battery storage, electric vehicles, and all things energy efficiency. So for us, it's really applying electrical knowledge that's built up through experience and an apprenticeship to a new technology. So our role in the advancement of net zero at the residential level is really helping customers make educated choices, understanding what options are available to them, exploring different technologies with them, and then also looking what types of power loads can actually be handled by that home. Our focus is always to take a new technology, whether it be EV or solar or storage, and layer it in terms of an industry credential on top of an existing electrical experience. So
Great. So one thing I had forgot to mention again, just as a reminder, is that we're looking across the industry here in the different areas where we do need training. So again, we're looking at that high school level, looking at that college, looking at the union, looking at existing workforce development. So, just thinking about those areas and where each of you fit in general, whether it's your specific programs or in those categories as well, could you just speak to, and Matt, I'm going to give it to you first, where do you see your program going in the future to prepare trainees for the net zero and the zero carbon 24/7, 365 zero carbon movement?
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely something, the more I learn, the more my students learn. So the more I get involved with you guys, the more I get connected. It's pretty much endless the way I look at it. So everything I learn from everybody, speaking here, and other things I get involved in with the building community translates over to the kids. So I guess it's up to you guys. Whatever you show me, I'll show them. I want to keep on going. Like I said, for me, I'm very competitive with myself. So every house we have to do something a little bit better, right? We had a point, we ended the house with 0.98. This one I want to end the house less than that, right? For the air exchange. To have net zero passive house tacked to one of these builds. That's the ultimate goal. Carbon is something, the carbon footprint is something I paid attention to and learned more and more about each time. I think that's probably where I have the least amount of knowledge, but I think that's also one of the highest debated things as, what people are, what should be done, what shouldn't be done, all that stuff. So I really enjoy learning about that. So I think for us, it's as much knowledge as I can gain is how much the students are going to gain. And we're just going to keep going. As far as science proves it's better, I'm all in on it.
Thanks, Matt. And Maddie, just from a governmental standpoint, where is the role in the future? What do you see there?
Sure. So we're actually at a really interesting crossroads in weatherization. We really have received quite a bit of bipartisan legislative support in recent years, and then specifically in a lot of the president's priorities, there have been a lot of renewed focus on weatherization. And then so we've had our formula funding, which is our stable, consistent funding to the 57 direct grantees increase. And I believe this year, it hasn't been formalized. I believe it's going to be 325 million, which is up, 4 years ago when I started, I think we were in the high 200 millions federally. And then on top of that, we, through the IIJA, which is the bipartisan infrastructure law, we received a federal stimulus of $3.5 billion over an extended period of time that is to our own definition. We will likely do it over 5 to 10 years. So the weatherization network across the country is figuring out how to implement that. But at this point in time, we're estimating an influx that will look like a potential doubling or tripling of the size of our program over the next 5 to 10 years, starting this summer or fall, depending on when the funding hits. So we have been in preparation for rapid expansion. On top of that, we know, I think everyone on this call knows, there's currently really an industry shortage in contractors in general, and then energy efficiency contractors. We've had a lot of trouble getting additional contractors into our program because of some of our restrictions on cost limits. And then the high demand and the increased in material costs, all of that has caused difficulty in our expansion. So we have been looking at ways we can innovate statewide and lead the state, and then also work with our 25 sub-grantees to innovate as well. So locally. So here are some things we're doing. We have a weatherization training center in Michigan. Not every state has one, but we do. They are relatively new. They received IREC accreditation, which is a accreditation for training centers in the Weatherization Assistance Program, and have been providing all training for our network since then. They also have BPI test proctors available, where our program requires multiple types of BPI certification. So we brought that to Michigan so that we don't have to have our folks travel out of state to receive our required training requirements. And we're also having MyTech extend some of those trainings and certifications outside of our network within our state to try to increase those people credentialed to work in the program. We're also working with statewide stakeholder groups. So David, who I know got me looped into this call, we have quite a few others who are focused on workforce development and contractors. We've been really putting our heads together on how we can all solve this problem together, because we're all running into it in slightly different ways. We've worked with David and a few other folks on surveying contractors on their perception of the Weatherization Assistance Program in Michigan and barriers to entry in our program so that we can get from the horse's mouth why contractors that currently exist wouldn't be bidding and what we can do to address those things. We are also planning trainee cohorts within our program. So essentially it would look like folks that are not current contractors receiving a stipend for participating in our workforce development with some amount of retention agreement that they would stay in weatherization after that happens. We're going to be piloting that in our next program year starting July 1st. If we have success with that, we're going to be doing it in our retrofit installer position, which is building shell installer. If we have success with that, we will be scaling that to our auditors and inspectors. So we're looking to essentially pay people to get training to be qualified to work in our program. We're working on increasing our visibility and recruitment. We have a client ed team that are also working on other types of outreach, not just clients. We have a few trailers that they will be taking to events around the state to show people what is weatherization, why should I care about weatherization, how does it affect me, can I be a client, could I be a contractor, could I start working in energy efficiency? All of that is something we're trying to target. And then we're also planning a statewide marketing campaign with kind of those 4 target groups: general population, potential clients, potential existing contractors, and then our pipeline for workforce development. Those are all ways that we're looking to expand starting now.
Thank you so much, Maddie. And Pat, I'll hand it up to you. What is the future for Michigan Saves and funding to help with the net zero transition?
All right, I'm back here. Can you see this slide? I'm gonna advance here.
Yeah, I see your slide. Yeah.
Trouble getting it to go to the next screen.
I don't see any slides, but if you just want to update us, that's fine. We can keep moving. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so basically, we ran some numbers in the recent past. We've done some cost sharing with our contractor network that has allowed our contractors access to. We had some lead abatement trainings, also some BPI trainings. There's actually a couple contractors that I noticed are on this list that took advantage of that. We have one up in Traverse City, GeoFurnace, and then Ecotelligent down in the Detroit area. And what that's allowed them to do is hopefully remove some of the barriers and the workforce, the gap. I mean, that's for when I'm on day-to-day conversations with contractors, that is literally the number one, and probably as Maddie just said, that is literally the number one barrier to getting these jobs installed. And especially, I think Matt hit on this earlier, you know, he was trying to do something, getting a house to net zero that took a couple of years. So keeping the ball moving when you do the air sealing, you know, September of 2020, and then the solar doesn't go on until spring of 2022. So, but the people out there that are training these individuals and getting people, it was a great graphic that you showed earlier of essentially that is, we were seeing growth there. This is, I think you guys can hopefully see my slide now. Michigan Saves, with its $350 million that we've infused or helped infuse into Michigan's economy. It's also supported, and we don't like to say created, but supported 6,300 full-time jobs. So having that development and growth for our contractors has been hopefully very helpful to the state and even outside of this region.
Great, thank you so much. Patrick and Don, from Grand Rapids Community College standpoint, you all are doing some great things out there. What do you see sort of the future of training? Any plans, any ideas from a net zero standpoint? Are you still with us, Don? Well, while we're waiting for Don, we'll hand it off to Jennifer real quick to update us on their progress at the union.
We've been actively working over about the past 10 years, training up our workforce in new technologies like solar, electric vehicle charging and storage. These are, again, technologies that are reinforced for our workforce in terms of industry recognized credentials. So an electrician in our system would go through a specialty certification that's recognized by industry to prove that they have that technology skill. We began training pretty extensively in Michigan in solar right around 2009 and 10. We probably have more technicians trained in Michigan than we have solar installations. We're definitely very prepared for this market to grow in Michigan. We did the same thing in collaboration with General Motors in 2010 and 2011. We were part of a collaborative of industry that included utility partners, automakers, EVSE manufacturers, and other stakeholders, and us, of course, as electrical professionals, to develop a training course for the installation of charging equipment to support the EV industry around the launch of, at that time, the Chevy Volt. So that market obviously has expanded exponentially in the last several years, with dozens and dozens of electrified vehicles coming to market across all market sectors. Our role in that as electrical contractors and electricians is really to apply our knowledge and certification in that area in any market sector, but certainly at that home level, when a consumer buys an EV, and are they buying like a Ford F-150 Lightning that has vehicle to grid capability and could actually charge your home? What does that charging configuration need to look like? What does the power in that home need to look like? Always keeping in mind safety, 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 and ease of use, I think, for the customer. Our goal in training to any one of these technologies is to make sure that customers understand what their options are, and they're dealing with professionals that have proven skill in an area, so they really feel very comfortable and very at ease making these technology changes.
Thanks so much to Jennifer there. And Don, are you with us now? Well, we are running a little bit short on time. We want to get to your questions, so let's bundle the next two together here just real quick. So our last kind of question for you all is both just some lessons learned on your program that you can share, hopefully with others who can launch these in their own sectors moving forward, wherever that might be, at the high school level, college level. And then just real quick, briefly, where can people go to learn more about what you're doing or reach out? So Matt, I'll give it to you.
Yeah. So obviously what I've learned, I constantly get asked about, starting these kind of programs and what's it take? It does take a community to do this stuff. That's for sure. I encourage people to obviously get these programs back up and running in their schools. And not only once they do get them going, take the opportunity, since they're brand new or relaunch, to start off with this kind of building in mind. It's easier to start off things this way than it is to switch gears, as many of us are probably aware of that. So that's definitely something I've learned. And the other thing is to, these programs help out kids in not just going into our own industry workforce, but also into anything. I won't explain exactly what this slide was all about, but Miles here is going to be a surgical assistant, and thanks to being in building trades, he understands what tools to use in surgery. If you ever saw surgery tools, they look like our tools, right? So these programs not only help us in our effort for, building better houses, but they help our future generation and everything. So that's one thing I've definitely learned for these programs, not only for building better, but just as our future as a whole, just having better rounded people. And I've always said trade classes equal all classes. We take every class in the school and we put our hands on, and we make it happen, right? We do math, we do English, we do science, we do all that stuff. And then of course, if you guys want to get connected with me, Instagram is where I'm probably most active. You can also just type in my name on LinkedIn, Matt Bloomquist, and you guys should be able to find me. I've already had a few come through and stuff, which is great. Love to get connected with anybody. So yeah, connect with me any way you can on those, and I will definitely respond back. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And stick around for questions. And I follow Matt too, and I appreciate all the updates and just seeing the next generation, what they're learning on LinkedIn, at least where we're connected. So so get at them there. Maddie, tell us, just with the training workforce, what are you seeing out there, sort of lessons learned that you're learning and being able to apply those and share them? And then again, where can people go to contact you and learn more about these efforts?
Thanks.
I went for Maddie. Sorry, Dave.
Are you hearing me, Brett?
Yep, I hear you
Okay.
now. Yep.
I have like a notification that Zoom quit, but if you're hearing me, great. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, everything's working. So
Okay.
it's
Nice.
not true.
All right, I won't touch it. So in terms of lessons learned for folks, we've done a lot of work with our partnerships, like I said, and I think primary way to be the most efficient in energy efficiency in our sector is to work directly with the Weatherization Assistance Program and make sure you're not being redundant with all of the things that we can do. So how can you, if you're not in weatherization, supplement or leverage the Weatherization Assistance Program to maximize everything that's going on? We have worked closely with the Michigan Public Service Commission, and we have friends there who have worked to understand our program and have gotten Michigan utilities much more involved in supplementing our work as opposed to duplicating it. And especially with the stimulus that's happening, it's going to be really crucial. We have a lot of federal money available, but it's only available for very specific things. And like I said, there are other components that we would love to prioritize, but we aren't able to due to cost restrictions. So when we have funds that can leverage our money, it often will unlock using our money and maximizing benefits to our clients. So really encourage everyone here to get in touch with their local, probably state, could be territory, weatherization program to see how what they're doing and what kind of partnerships are available. And then I do have some links that people can follow. I would love to hear from people in Michigan or people with additional questions about weatherization. I have my email here and also our general mailbox. I am currently working on our state plan and my mailbox has been getting kind of full. So I put our general mailbox there too to make sure emails are getting seen. MyTech, our training center, has a ton of resources and their website is available here. We've also got our general weatherization site, and that site for the state of Michigan is going to be updated quite a bit with the marketing that we've talked about, learning more from Department of Energy's general weatherization website. And then NASCAP is our state association, and they are a great place to find every state contact for weatherization. So I have all of those listed here.
Can you advance your slide? It's still stuck on the other one, so maybe you can advance it real quick so they can see your. I'll give you a second, maybe in a little bit, to share it again. So
yeah, I'm gonna try to reshare my screen.
Okay. And we'll jump back before we get into Q&A there. So, and Pat, just lessons learned from what you're seeing out there. I know you just launched this electrification program, obviously that came out of your lesson, but yeah, tell us a little bit and then where can people go to learn more?
So definitely this is something that one of my team members worked with City of Ann Arbor in conjunction on this electrification badge, which is now available on the training and badge is available on our website, which is michigansaves.org. There's also a really nice residential guide to electrification that's been getting some really good traction kind of out in the field, even outside of the state of Michigan. I think my biggest takeaway is I'm still, relatively new to this industry, 5-ish years now at this point, is the openness in which, like this event, for example, or people are willing to help and share information with others to make them successful in their programs. That's your fast way to get the most up-to-date and current information is sharing and then, participating in events like this, and or as soon as we jump off, I have some people I've already noted that I want to connect with after this. So I think the biggest lesson is don't try to reinvent the wheel, use the resources that are in the industry to help you get there in a timely fashion. But I'm happy to connect. I'll throw my email in here. You can reach any of us at michigansaves.org. But I'll stick around for questions too.
Great. Thank you so much, Pat. So real quick, before we get into the remainder of wrapping up here, I just wanted to remind everybody that as far as this session goes for your continuing education units, the session is completed from the continuing education standpoint. But we want you to stick around. This is a 2-hour conference. It's not a 1-hour conference. So please stick around from the continuing education standpoint. We thank you so much. For those of you watching this in the future on demand, not right now, take your quiz with an 80% passing rate to get your CEUs. You can find that quiz on our Thinkific channel, on GBCI channel, whatever channel this might be on in the future, you can take your quiz there. And for those of you watching live right now here today with us, and you're looking for your continuing ed, as a reminder, our friends over at Gutenbergsearch.com, search at Gutenbergsearch.com, yeah, see it there. Mark them as safe. They're friendly. It's not spam, but check your spam. That's probably where it's most likely going before you reach out to me, and you will find it there, and you can get your continuing ed. So, Don, are you now back with us again? I see your name on here a couple different times, so hopefully one of them's working. Can you give us a little wrap up on lessons learned from what you're seeing out there, and then just where can people go to learn more or sign up for the program?
Sure, thanks. The HVAC industry is a big world out there, and who knows what they'll come up with tomorrow as far as new techniques, new technology, new equipment, and so forth. You know, I think we have a pretty good program going here as far as training the next generation of HVAC technicians. I think that you know, there's a lot of schools out there who are just as capable or doing just as good of a job as we are. And I think there's a really continue to be a big market out there. I just wanted to do a shout out to one of the people who is online today, and that's Jeff Mealater with Johnstone Supply. You know, we talk about the technology and everything, but from an industry standpoint, it's good to hear what's going on from someone who's actually selling this equipment, who knows, you know, what the trends are, what is selling, you know, what type of equipment at what level of efficiency. And so, you know, I think we can learn a lot from them as well.
Great, thank you so much, Don. Before we jump into the official Q&A, let's just hear one last time before we let on-demand Jennifer Medford go, and where we can learn a little bit more about their program and what they're doing.
And I'm talking often with whether it's students in schools or parents, educators, school administrators. A lot of our conversation is about, it isn't really about trade school or apprenticeship versus college. It's really about what does that post-secondary education look like as it means attached to a jobs market. So by the time you're done with your post-secondary education, no matter what form that comes in, how is it attached to a jobs market? The electrical industry jobs market is very strong, and I see that as a decades-long strength based on the growth in a lot of these areas, and certainly in growth in electric vehicles, storage, and solar. So from our perspective, you know, when we're looking at qualified candidates, and I'm just going to go back to talking about my conversations with students, parents, and educators, we had to do significant work in the schools themselves with the counseling community and with educators, really talking about what type of qualifications we needed from students coming into our programs. Electrical has a very high requirement for advanced math skill. So algebra is something that electricians will use every day, geometry, trigonometry. So we really need a college level math candidate when they're coming in to apply for our programs. Typically, We test for two things. We test for math aptitude as well as reading comprehension, but the math aptitude across the board is really the struggle point. It's the pinch point. So we almost had to go deeper into schools and have conversations with counselors, educators, those that were advising students about the trades, which trade pathway might make sense for them, about what we really needed in terms of qualifications. So over the last 5 or 7 years, I'm very encouraged to see the change in that. So the candidates that we're getting and the alignment with schools, the CTE, VOTEC Ed and Career Tech Ed conversations at schools are making a difference. So I've seen a significant change in the uptick of candidates, of interest, and I think just an understanding of what skilled trades are and what those careers really look like. So these are great jobs, great career pathways. The education, of course, isn't earn while you learn. It is hands-on on the job. You don't graduate with college debt. I think that there was just a significant lack of familiarity with not only what the careers look like, but what the income was and kind of what that education track looked like. So I feel like at times we've made significant growth, but we can't stop telling that story enough to make sure that people really understand how it goes. But one of the things that I also talk with educators and students about is that 95% of our contractors who own some of the largest electrical firms in the country based in Michigan came through an apprenticeship. So it truly is an industry where you can come in as an apprentice, get a foundation of technical expertise, and then pivot into any of the other areas of our industry. And that's very exciting to me. So it isn't something that you come in and you intend to probably stay in one track. It offers multiple tracks within one industry. And that seems to be very exciting for the folks that do come in. Sure. So we have a couple of different websites, and I will tab our zero. I have to mention our Zero Net Energy facility in Detroit. So this is, of course, a commercial facility, and I know that your focus is residential, but we were very excited to be the largest commercial Zero Net center in Michigan. We still are. It is our corporate headquarters in Detroit. If anyone is interested in touring that facility, there are 9 separate systems that contribute to our Zero Net portfolio in this building, including a tremendous solar roof and geothermal wells on the site. So if anyone is interested in touring that or learning more about those systems, they can visit our Zero Net Energy website, but I'm also happy to tour them through the facility. Our IBEW Michigan website offers a searchable map for folks interested in finding their training centers. Our point of entry for those brand new to the trade is through a training center. We have 10 in the state. There's a network of 288 around the country, and they're really all set up in very similar ways. You come in typically and apply either in person or online. We do offer 3 separate programs. Inside construction is 5 years. Sound and communications and data, which is a huge growth area for the industry, is 3 years, and our residential program is 3 years. Those apprenticeships are paid positions. So when you come in, you are working. 90% of that time will be spent in the field, earning income. And then typically you'll come to school at our training centers about 2 days a month to learn code content and classroom education, as well as hands-on in the labs that we have at our facilities. The rest of the time you're in the field. So you can go onto the website, ibwmichigan.org, and you can search this map and based on where you live in the state, and it will pop up with that information on that training center and kind of how to get started. We also offer a kind of a concierge service. You'll connect to me if you go to that site, and I'm happy to talk with individuals specifically about what their interests are, how I'm seeing where they should start their process in terms of application, what the timing of that might look like, and help them get connected.
Get into your questions, put them into the Q&A so we can make sure we see them, but feel free to continue to add dialogue in the chat. We'd love to see it. We're gonna get to a couple of your questions, and then we've got some of our sponsors here, and they're not necessarily here to just talk about what they have as far as how to get to net zero, which they will, but what their role is in training either the next generation or our current workforce, which we think is really key. if we're going to, make any of this happen, if we're going to be able to get all of our new and existing homes to net zero starting yesterday. We had to start yesterday. So, so let's take a look here just at, there's been a ton of questions that have been coming in, and we'd also love to have our planning partners kind of dive into the conversation. Specific question here about inspectors, and this has been on my mind too, because really, and Maddie, maybe this is kind of aimed at you a little bit. If you can help out here, maybe defer people to where we can get some questions, or maybe some of our training folks are training the next inspector workforce, because we do need them. But what the question, what do you view as an entry-level certification for inspectors getting into weatherization, energy efficiency, or of course more ideal path for net zero?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. So I think there are some answers when you're talking about energy efficiency in general, and then there are different answers when you're talking about the weatherization assistance program. And I'm an expert in weatherization assistance program, I will say there are BPI credentials and certifications for inspectors, often with utility companies or other energy efficiency programs that are probably different than ours. I know building analyst, for example, BPI building analyst is often utilized in the utilities. I can't speak for them. I can't tell you up to date where they are. But in our program, we have for initial inspections, the role of energy auditor, which that's what we call that, the initial inspector. They write the work orders, they assess the scope of the home. And in our program, we use a specific home energy audit tool called Weatherization Assistant. So they understand utilizing that. Those folks have to carry what we are calling the State of Michigan Energy Auditor Certification, which is through our training center and office, or the BPI Energy Auditor Certification, which is a home energy professional level certification. In terms of post inspections, which are mandated in our program, 100% of our jobs are post inspected. We have a role called the quality control inspector, and those folks must hold a QCI, quality control inspector, BPI certification, which is micro credential on the energy auditor cert. So those two are BPI level certifications and required for our program. Every state will have slight differences, but the QCI is the same across the country.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Matt. Is there anyone else who wants to chime in on sort of the auditor, sort of rater side of this before we move on to the next question? Well, great. So the next question that I see came in here is specific to scaling decarbonization, and so maybe I'll well, actually I want to wait until we get a few other folks in here on that one. I think, Maddie, just since while we still have you on right now, it seemed like there were a bulk of questions about the weatherization WAP program. So just briefly, could you speak to, do you see, I mean, obviously right now from an area median income standard, there are some challenges on how those numbers are calculated, right? And I mean, I've always said it, like, perhaps they're not always appropriately factoring in other financial constraints people are dealing with, especially these days, and with inflation and debt. You don't have to answer that, but the question more is, do you foresee in the future those caps getting raised more, so more people who may be at the 100% or 100, what we call the ALICE population here in West Michigan, 125 AMI, who quite frankly can't pay for this stuff, do you see like more benefits coming their way?
Okay, so I can touch on this in a few ways. Some things to think about when you're thinking about the weatherization assistance program are, what level is the regulation set at? That's always going to tell us like how difficult it will be for rule changes to happen. So in terms of federal, is it set through legislation, that means it takes an act of Congress to change. Is it set in CFR, which means there's a federal rulemaking process, or is it set at the program office level? Those are the levels of difficulty in getting changes. Then separately is a regulation set at the state level. That will all tell us how easy something is to change. Unfortunately, it's a federal poverty level, not AMI in weatherization, and it's 200%. It's set statutorily, which is like the highest level of regulation. But we can do what are called categorical eligibilities. So we can do alternate types of eligibilities. So we have in Michigan opened up all alternatives possible. DOE did get a really good alternative categorical eligibility this year, which is anyone who qualifies for any HUD 80% AMI program is now eligible for weatherization, no questions asked, if it was in the last year. So we have HUD 80% AMI programs. We have in Michigan LIHEAP, which is state emergency relief. If anyone received that program, they qualify. We also have a few other cash assistance programs. If they receive it, they qualify. So we can open it up. That's the most we can open it up. If statute changes, we can open it up more. I don't foresee that happening soon, but it could.
Well, thanks, Maddie. And yeah, you know, it is at the end of the day, to be able to do these things, it is a struggle for many to be able to fund with the upfront cost of these types of projects. So the more resources and discussion we can have on that end, and we're doing more of that too, both at a state and local and national level, the more we need to have these conversations as well. So shifting back gears a little bit on the on the training side, I want to thank our sponsor Rockwool here. And Chris, if you're out there and you want to come in, could you just speak a little bit about what you all have going on? And again, thanks for your support.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the invitation. I'll share my screen real quick. So Rockwool here over the last year opened up a new program for builders, remodelers, contractors, and the like, called the R-Class program. So this is basically our program for the builders, like I said, and we offer multiple trainings, insight over the phone. We offer WOFE reports to kind of go over the calculations of the R values and efficiency of the house. This program also offers marketing help for guys that are looking to get more into this energy efficient type of insulation product, along with rebates for builders and contractors. So kind of like a nice rounded program for customers of ours. So it's definitely something that's really easy to sign up. Basically, just go right on to our rclass.com website. You can join there. There's a lot of videos and training programs there. You can order samples, some information, but then obviously like in your certain area, I handle most of the upper Midwest from the Dakotas all the way out to Ohio. And we have 5 other guys on our team that handle the rest of, as I want to say, the east half of the country. So definitely something like we've been out with Matt Bloomquist and his kids, and then trained them up a couple of days on insulation. So it's definitely something that we're willing to travel out there and meet with you and your customers and kind of really push the high R value exterior, interior insulation below grade. So plenty of products for the whole house.
And you're doing a giveaway, right?
Yep. So basically, once you sign up for this and start turning in some invoices on your projects, basically a chance to win a whole house of Rockwool insulation. So that'll be going on. I think we're going to be giving away 1 house per quarter over the next year. So definitely something to sign up and find out about. It's real easy to enter.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and safe travels out there. So Roger and Mitsubishi, a huge thanks to Mitsubishi for their support. Roger, if you just want to tell us a little bit about what role Mitsubishi is playing training our next generation, as well as the existing workforce, and how what you have fits in.
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. We have we do a great deal of training It's really one of the biggest things that we offer. Everything from a 2-day installation and service class to individual classes that we often go out and actually teach either at trade schools or we teach at individual contractor locations. We teach applications so that the heat pumps are properly applied, that they're doing sizing so that they're the right size for the home or the structure. We do zone comfort solutions for contractors that are now doing whole homes with heat pumps. We also offer a 4-hour service class for, again, the technicians that are actually in the field, servicing equipment, maintaining it, doing all the hands-on work, if you will. We teach our Diamond System Builder platform, which is how to properly apply a system. So if you've ever seen a mechanical drawing that has specified Mitsubishi or any other brand, they have used a CAD program like Diamond System Builder to do that. So we teach engineers how to use that program. We also teach design build contractors how to use that as well. We also support our contractors and their teams with over 100 different e-learnings, and we rotate those regularly to keep them fresh and keep them current. So our contractor network can go onto our website and they can take anything from a 5-minute service class or a 10-minute installation class on a control all the way to a very in-depth training that can be up to 4 to 6 hours long. So there's really a plethora of opportunities there. And then one I'm really proud of that we're working on. In fact, I'm sitting in the parking lot of a training school in New Hampshire, working with a lot of the trade schools in New England to put together a Teens to Trades program. And what that is, it's taking young people in high school that are in the different UTC programs, the different hands-on programs that are teaching them plumbing or heating or HVAC. And we're actually taking those students after they leave high school, taking them right into the trade schools with courses that help them earn their EPA certification. They actually get hands-on lab training on how to install, how to service, how to maintain heat pumps and other equipment like that. So again, these students that are not necessarily looking for a 4-year college degree, but they want to get into the trades and they want to get right out there and start working and get that hands-on experience. We're developing those training curriculums now with all of the trade schools in New England, and we hope to roll that out by this fall. So we're really we're seeing a lot of growth in our industry. Everybody is moving towards heat pumps. It's more sustainable. Most of the states now have efforts to move people off of fossil fuel and onto alternative heating devices. And we have just seen such an exorbitant amount of growth over the last 5 to 7 years that we're actually finding that we're at a critical need of more people coming into the trades, or we're not going to be able to meet those demands. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity for young people. And we feel as a manufacturer, it's our job to make sure that we're out there training and again, bringing more people that are looking for something as an alternative to a 4-year college degree into the trades and teaching them how lucrative it can be for them.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. We'll have to, catch back up in the fall when you get into that program, or maybe next year, and hear about how it's going and keep this conversation going. So thanks for having us. And hopefully you're teaching the new workforce that these systems work when it is below freezing out, because there's so much miseducation and misunderstanding. I can tell you from personal experience, we do not have backup gas. We do not have backup resistance. And we made it through another winter and we're still alive and didn't get cold. So it's just amazing how much people just don't know that. So hopefully the new generation will be aware that we've got a different set of technology here with us. So
yes, I actually live in the state of Maine. My design temperature is -13, and
right.
We heat our house exclusively with heat pumps.
Exactly. So yeah, thank you so much, Roger. Stay on with us if you want to jump into the rest of the conversation. Tim, I'm going to hand it off to you. Tim from REAM, tell us a little bit more about what you all got going on.
Sure. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And okay, so I'm trying to share my screen and it's not working. Let's try it now. There we go. Again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Goggin, and for those of you that are not familiar with REAM, we are a global manufacturer making residential and commercial products, which from the residential standpoint, impact about 65% of all the energy used in a home. And we have taken a very proactive stance several years ago in regards to formation of the industry. And we have made training our priority. And one of the recent things we introduced, which is again, not a new product, that has everything to do with heat pump water heating, kind of bobtailing on what Roger was talking about with heat pumps. So saying that, a heat pump water heater represents, or water heating represents, second highest energy user in a home. And we in North America are in all channels providing that product, and the demand is significant. So what we do is we, again, all part of the training. I want to give you some of the resistance we get with this product, which we address. I'm not going to go over it indefinite, but you can see the screen. And then this is where the rubber hits the road. Just the energy savings alone using heat pump water heating versus a standard resistor element electric water heater. So we have, I'm sure Roger would agree, to influence a market, we have to recognize that 70% of the decisions made by a homeowner are influenced by the contractor. So our efforts in the last numerous years have been training the trade, okay? In so much that I'm showing you a screenshot pretty much of the US and our teams that all segments of the markets are being trained, to the point that last year we're very, very proud to announce that we've actually trained 20,000 people last year. Okay, and our goals are set even higher going into this year, and we're well ahead of where we anticipate landing. Okay, we've established and actually have brick and mortar training centers throughout the US, and we're building more where we actually bring people in from the unions, bring the trade in, brings, one of the speakers we're talking about from the high school level, college levels, we have plumbing support managers that are master plumbers going out and training plumbers, going out and training the apprentices and those in trade schools so they understand the importance of high efficiency products. We also incentivize the contractors by offering them valuable rewards through our Pro Club program that don't really incentivize using the standard 6-year product, but it has to be high efficiency products. And they're generally get onto our club, and then they're the first to know things that are coming out. And of course, that's an example of the things that we offer. Okay. And we also have an app that we encourage all contractors to get on for update information and questions. We also have signage that we incorporate and offer to our contractors that are out there. We have web suite that actually enable them to update their websites to make them more user friendly, and again, get attention, because we know that everyone's online, much like the conference today, and that's how you influence the sale of better grade products. And then, of course, closing, we have a variety of different things that we offer, advertising literature, and of course, promoting the better grade product for the transformation of the market. Thank you.
All right, Tim, thank you so much. And again, thanks to Ream for their support. One of the things I love too about it is the time of use ability, and hopefully, being able to educate the installers about how people can sign up for their time of use programs and shift their load, right, to different times of the day. It just automatically happens. I don't even have to think about it. It just doesn't heat as much from 2 to 7 o'clock, and I haven't needed it, right? I haven't noticed it either. So that's just one great thing that I hope, gets incorporated into these conversations as we start to think about not only how much energy we're using, but when we're using energy. So
correct.
Thanks again, Tim. So real quick too on I'm really thankful for our brand new net zero conference sponsor here, Indo. They for our existing housing out there, we have huge issues with existing housing. And we know it is getting really expensive to, and it always has been expensive to do brand new windows. And it doesn't always make sense to do brand new windows. So imagine if we can have a local workforce repairing, reputtying, resealing new windows, and that will reduce embodied energy of creating manufacturing new windows and then also repairing the old ones so they're not leaking water. But then also we want to do exterior storms and maybe these new interior storm windows where this is like do it yourself, or you can train your workforce literally just using their YouTube videos online on how to install these interior type windows. And this is going to cut not only energy transmission through the window, but it's also going to help with sound transmission, which can be a huge issue in urban areas. And they have a study showing just how much air leakage reduction occurs, which also saves energy when you go through and do these interior storm windows through Indo. So we're super thankful for their support. And we have millions of existing homes, and it's just getting more and more expensive. So we think they've got a solution here to our problem with air leakage in windows for net zero. So with that, you know, there's been some conversation in the chat. There's been some conversation in the Q&A about our health. And that is one of the 5 pillars of green. We talk about those here at GHI all the time. Right now we're talking about energy a lot, but health is a huge aspect. And so if we're introducing air ventilation into our homes, we know that that takes energy, that, you know, potentially wastes energy. And sometimes people don't like that, but we can do it in a more energy efficient way, and we can have net zero healthier homes. So Ty Newell from Build Equinox, who's another one of our sponsors, just tell us a little bit about what you all are up to and how you're training the workforce to be ready for a healthy net zero home.
Thank you, Brett. It's great to be with everyone here and great to see representation across the country, as well as while I'm coming to you from Urbana, Illinois, I'm a native Michigan, Detroit born, and glad to see the interest in progressive activities going on in Michigan. As Brett mentioned, our focus at Build Equinox is indoor air quality, and we're a manufacturer of the world's first smart ventilation system that automatically manages air quality. But the perspective you can find lots of stuff online about what we do, what we build, and that. The perspective I'd like to talk about is on jobs. And first, what we represent is a product that hasn't been put in homes. So here's a new manufacturing opportunity. In addition to the system that we build, as Tim mentioned, with heat pump water heaters, if you think of that as a water heater plus, that there's a heat pump being built added to the water heater, you want to think of manufacturing jobs to do that. If you think of Whirlpool's new heat pump clothes dryer, that Whirlpool's heat pump clothes dryer, well, it's adding in effect a basement dehumidifier to a clothes dryer. There's more jobs in manufacturing with that. And as we think of other things that are coming along the line, rainwater harvesting, that here's manufacturing and installation that are going to go on in our local communities. And what this boils down to, my background is I'm an old retired professor from the University of Illinois in mechanical engineering. So I've studied these things for 50 years now. And this means that as we switch off fossil fuels, for every dollar and every job eliminated from fossil fuels, that's 10 jobs added in manufacturing. People that build heat pumps, people that install solar collectors and manufacture wind turbines, there's 10 times more jobs per dollar of revenue in those companies as there are in the fossil fuel industry. This is not my data. This is from Fortune 500. And basically what this means is this transition is a healthy one job-wise for people that work for a living, people that manufacture, people that install, people in our trades. So we're going to feel an increasing need for jobs in every facet as we build these better homes and better businesses that are built on top of a sustainable way of living. So I'll be quiet and look forward to any questions.
All right, thanks, Ty. Thanks to all of our sponsors. again. And so let's keep going with some of our questions here. Let's get our planning partners on the line. Turn your cameras on. Let's get our speakers on the line. Turn your cameras on, our sponsors. Let's get everybody. And let's just have a big conversation. You know, there's a really good question that came in here. And, you know, first I kind of want to hand it over to you, Pat, so you can just tell us about the financing side maybe of it and what you're seeing. And then maybe over to you, Don or Matt, and then over to Tim. And so this is really about the and unfortunately Jennifer, she would have been my first go, but she's not here. So you know, really we've got the electric box, right? And we've got our breaker box, and it's standing in the way, even on some new homes, unfortunately, it's standing in the way of electrification. It's very expensive to fix that. So let's just speak to that a little bit, Pat. I mean, is that something that's financeable? Are you seeing that happen from a Michigan Save standpoint?
I mean, we're just seeing a lot of projects, and I think what we've established a really good network of both lenders and contractors, but also with, you know, I'm looking at these videos, how many of us are spending more time in our homes? And obviously with the real estate market the way it is, individuals are afraid. I had this conversation with a realtor yesterday that the stock is way down, so people are afraid to sell their home, even if they want to move to a different region, different state, different block around the corner. So we're seeing these improvements more just based on, you know, they've been thinking about the windows for the last 8 years, but the plan was to move 3 years ago. And here we are. And that's every single day. I mean, I'm hearing that. And the nice part is if we use these more modern building materials when we're replacing them, not the cheapest thing possible. And hopefully that's where the financing comes in, where, you know, I can only afford an 80%er if I pay cash, but I can do 99 if I can get an unsecured loan I'm allowed to pay off. And, you know, we have it every year where people are on the holidays, overspend, and the furnace breaks January 1st. They take a 10-year loan with us. And as soon as they get their income tax check back in April, they pay off their 10-year loan. They've paid $20 in interest in 6 months. And we're able to make that hopefully, and then the ability to do a package system, right? If your furnace breaks, but your AC is 20 years old, do you really want to go back with something efficient? Or you can look at mini splits if you never had air conditioning, or, you know, so what we're attempting to, at least here in Michigan, break that barrier down of, you know, the conversation of not doing something. And then some of these creative, I'm seeing it more commonly, the home performance contractors that say, can we really get somebody to net zero? I've got someone down in Kalamazoo that they have a pretty good getting the plan in place, though, in the series of what to do, rather than putting your panels on and then calling to complain because you're overproducing, when all of a sudden you got new windows, new HVAC, and air sealed insulation after you scaled your solar system. So it's, again, yeah, the short answer is absolutely, we're seeing this, and hopefully it spreads to other areas of the US for easy access to funds.
Thanks, Pat. Matt, you know, Don, from a student standpoint, where is this conversation coming into play that, you know, we're talking about all these cool little systems here, but if they're ever getting involved in the existing housing or commercial market, you know, running into that issue of just, we don't have the proper size panel, right?
Well, I'll go real quick. I mean, for me, we haven't got to do solar panel, which I'd love to put on one of our houses sometime, so the kids obviously can be part of that. Mm-hmm. And you know, for me to learn more. Unfortunately, the problem we run into in our situation is we're not the owners of the property, so we don't see any return on investment. So if any of you solar people out there want to team up, get a hold of me, please, because we're in a different boat. But what we do though is we'll run the conduit up, so that way it'll be up above the insulation. You get up in the attic, we can tie in. You know, I'm still learning on, you know, I rely a lot on you guys and I think it was Patrick was saying, you know, tie into the network and ask the experts. So that's kind of where I talk to all of you guys to find out, you know, what should we do? What should we have ready to go? So if somebody comes in and upgrades to, you know, take the house to the net zero standard, you know, pretty much don't screw the next guy, right? We want to make sure everything's set up and easy to translate. So that's where I'm definitely learning. And I talk to the students about that. We also talk about don't screw the next guy just when we're framing, because we're also the plumber, electricians, the HVAC guys, so we only screw ourselves. Good thing is we also fix those problems when we do. But also, the next step is, how's this house keep going? We built this house to potentially become net zero. We want to make sure it's set up and ready to go as well. So, I guess hopefully that answers my side of things.
Well, I really like that point you bring up, and we talk a lot about that here, about the interconnection between each of the trade and how everyone can understand their role within the role of how they connect with everybody else, so that we used to say this at a coffee shop I used to work at, like, set them up for success, right? Rather than get in their way. And that's one of the biggest failures we see in the residential green building and net zero movement. It's not technology, it's not funding, it's lack of communication and failure to understand your role connected to someone else's role. And we see what we call the green building finger pointing game, unfortunately, as sort of the worst end result of that, where it's like, no, it's their fault we didn't get to the net zero goal at the end. No. So anyway, I don't want to digress a little bit, but I'm really glad you brought up that connection where you're seeing that, how folks can, see their piece of the puzzle. So Don, I just want to bring you into on that discussion. And then, like you said, back to the sort of that electrification piece and the panel sizing and where that connects in your course.
You mean as far as solar panel sizing?
Well, solar is part of it, but even if we go with heat pump systems, a lot of times in our existing homes, and I think even unfortunately sometimes in new homes, even the panels are still just undersized.
Oh, I agree. We see that a lot. Again, you see a lot of people who have never had air conditioning in their home, and their home was built in the 30s or 40s. And the first thing we look at is the main panel. And you don't have room, or it's a 40 amp panel. There's a lot of 60 amps out there.
Oh.
They don't have a lot of choice but to call the electrician.
Yeah. So
which is going to cost several thousand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is pretty costly. So Tim, there's a solution coming from the heat pump water heater side. Can you just briefly catch us up on that?
Sure thing, Brett, and that's a good question. Water heater manufacturers, including Rheem, will be introducing a 115 volt heat pump water heater very, very soon. So keep your eye on social media and announcements that are out there. I'm anticipating in Q2 you'll start to see it. Initially, a lot of this will be available primarily more to the West Coast, but it will migrate over into the Midwest and throughout the United States very, very soon.
Great. So this is a really big question here, and I appreciate this question, but it's big, and I'm not sure who wants to try to take it on, but I like it. Looking at the challenge of decarbonizing buildings at the speed required to meet the Paris 2-degree limits, so no more fossil fuel machines, makes me, not me, but the person asking this, realize we need to cut the hours per building. How might we prepare the workforce for rapid triage or decarb optimization, so maximum tons saved per work week, et cetera? It's a big question. I don't know who wants to take that one, but
I'm out.
Brett, I'll chime in a little bit.
Okay.
For example, in ventilation, we describe ASHRAE's ventilation as too little, too much, but not enough. And that's basically today's ventilation, which is odor-based, not health-based. But it's also dumb ventilation because, and we've seen the results of it, right? We've gotten sick because of it. But basically, if you think about it, ventilation should be human-based. Whenever you walk in a building, you should be given 40 cubic feet per minute of fresh air. If you're at this kind of activity level, if you're exercising more, you walk out of that building, it should drop down. You go in this building, you go in your house, you go in a classroom. Everywhere you go, if it would ramp up to 40 cubic feet per minute, filtered fresh air, And when you walk out of that, it drops down. We actually reduce the amount of airflow that we're currently enormously squandering throughout the country. There's a large energy savings, and we're going to be healthier. So as we apply today's technologies to make things smarter, just like with water heaters, just like with today's comfort conditioning, wherever you walk, you get the fresh air you need. When you walk out of it, it drops down. We're going to save a lot of money. And so this occupancy is a very important question. There's no need to ventilate a building that doesn't have people in it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, that's going to be key. I mean, I just see how much energy is being used in my own household when when we all leave the house and I forget to shut the energy recovery ventilator off, which will be solved soon from a smart standpoint, I promise, and I will share that with everybody. But it is frustrating because, my cat doesn't need 400 parts per million of CO2. Which is weird because I thought my cat would put some CO2 in the air, but not very much. It kicks it all out. So anyway, I'm sure they love it, right? But it's such a waste of energy. And so that's something I think we need to make sure those in the mechanical industry are being educated on, just along with electrification, in order to, knock millions of kilowatt hours being wasted across the planet at this point, just to overventilate these spaces. So thanks for bringing up that, Ty. And again, just back to the bigger picture question on sort of this this focus of the workforce. And I don't know if anyone put any more thought into, but again, I'm trying to understand the question a little bit, but I thought more about it, and it's really like it feels like almost like they need to be focused purely on decarbonization and not get distracted by other aspects of housing. Maybe that's the way to look at it. And so a lot of times we get thrown into conversations about paint, trim, aesthetics, which are all important things. But do we see the tide turning to where now we're going to have more building science conversations with clients as the focus, rather than, what kind of, we always pick on the countertops, what kind of countertops we're going to have. Is anybody, Matt, Don, you're out there educating. I mean, I'm going to keep picking on you to some extent too. So,
I mean, for us, I talked to the kids about that. In fact, yesterday I just presented to our local Kiwanis group, and I was talking about why we build the houses that we do, because in order to get a house, performance level house like that in our area, you got to buy one of ours because no one else is doing it. So. Maybe if you get into like bigger, areas like Springfield or something, or, over near Ty in Champaign, we're just an hour and a half away from him. But and that's the thing I told those guys. I was like, there's one thing with the air sealing is a lot of just caulk and tape. So it's not fancy, it's not expensive, it's not difficult when it comes to air sealing. I've heard people say that's the low hanging fruit of this, when it comes to the building science thing, because it's super easy to do, especially when you're doing new construction. You do it at the beginning and plan for it and take care of it right away. Mm-hmm. Remodels are a different thing, but I go, we all put this focus on, and one of the people in there was, he's a investor, that's his profession, does investments. And I said, you talk to Brad, he's going to talk about spending this money now, what you get back in the end, right? This same thing you got to look at with your house. I said, we cheapen all the stuff that we build the structure of the house for its performance. And then we go and throw stuff in here. The HGTV is going to change your mind in 5 years, and you're going to tear it out and throw it away. I was like, why spend the money on it, right? Make your house perform like you're going to remodel the inside eventually anyway. We know you're gonna, so let's just accept the fact and put a little bit more money on the outside. And I tell the kids this too, put some more money on the shell of the house. That's less likely to change over time, at least a longer period of time. And, let's focus on, you can still make it look nice, but let's face it, styles change, things change. The wind blows differently, and we change our houses. So, take care of the outside. I preach that to the kids too. It's something I definitely learned, and appreciate and stuff, put a little bit of money in insulation and windows, that could pay off. And you're actually taking an opportunity to get money back or spend less money throughout your lifetime in the house. So.
Thanks, Matt. Don, anything to add to that on just some of the conversations you have there?
Brett,
Well,
this
if
is
you're
David.
talking about,
Oh, go ahead, Don.
well, if you're talking about new construction, I think the current energy codes are right up there as far as making sure the house is well sealed.
Mhm.
In the greater Grand Rapids, Michigan area, you're required to do a load calculation in order to get a building permit. So people, or at least builders, will know ahead of time how many BTUs I need to heat that home and how many BTUs I need to cool. So, as far as equipment selection, as far as what I'm going to put into the house, I mean, there's a lot of ways that homeowners are going to be educated as to what they should choose. But at the end of the day, they're going to go with however cheapest I can buy those BTUs at.
Very
I
true.
mean, my electric bill has gone up 25% in the last year, and Consumers Energy never bothered telling me they were raising my rates. I think there's a lot of people out there who are yelling at their kids saying they're leaving the lights on, when in fact they don't even realize their electric bills are going up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of issues we're going to face here in the next 5 to 10 years as far as energy, period. Okay. And when we talk about decarbonization, we also have to talk about what kind of a strain it's going to put on our electric grid, which is already outdated, which you and I have no control over. I mean, that's the federal government, the state government that's going to have to upgrade that. So I hate to be, a bearer of bad news, but at the end of the day, are we going to face rolling brownouts like they have in California? Because we've just, there's going to be a ton of people this summer who say, you know what, I've never had air conditioning in my house before. I'd really like it. So we pile on 10,000 more homes that have new air conditioning, not to mention the number of people who are buying electric cars. I mean, that electricity is coming from somewhere. So we have to have a little bit of a realistic point of view when it comes to decarbonization, the use of fossil fuels.
No, you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you brought that up. As we go to electrify more, it does become concerning. The infrastructure bill was passed. Is it going in to build the actual infrastructure for the grid? Are people being trained to work on this and improve it? That's a whole side of the equation. We're just focused on sort of the homes and the buildings. So that's a big issue that does need to be addressed in tandem with this. And I just saw something pretty cool that reminded me too of that. There actually in Texas, there's a group who is retraining fossil fuel drillers to train to drill for geothermal, not geothermal ground source heat pump, but geothermal down way in the ground for electricity to bring in more renewables across the country. So there are these interesting things that are happening. There are these challenges. David Gard, I do want to hand it over to you. Michigan Energy Efficiency Contractors Association, one of our main partners. I know you chimed in, so hey, good to see you out there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add something to Tom, in answer to Tom's question that you started with about the challenge of decarbonizing buildings and the speed required. Another way that I could interpret Tom's question is just the pace that we need to do these retrofits and new construction projects. And the fact that if you just take Michigan as an example, I think we've got, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 5 million homes and hundreds of thousands of commercial buildings. So we've got a certain amount of stock out there. Much of it hasn't even been touched. A lot of it's old and has great potential for energy savings. But if you draw a line from where we are today to get all of those buildings retrofitted by when we need to, it's clear that the current number of people in this industry are not enough. So I think everyone understands that the scale up that we have to do is really remarkable. And so, part of that, in order to work faster, get the pace going, it's going to be adding more people, making sure they're, the quality in their training doesn't suffer by adding more people. So that's got to be a lot of our focus. Another thing is that we as an industry, I think, have an opportunity to think about how the processes might be improved. Are there ways to aggregate projects? So, you're bringing jobs to contractors that are already kind of packaged and ready to go, and they can take advantage of economies of scale. They can form partnerships with contractors and other specialties to do bigger chunks of work. I think that might help the economics of scaling up. Another thing I'll mention too is that it's not just about training and adding workers, which is really important, but it's also making sure that the industry itself is sound, and that you've got a lot of these companies are small family-owned businesses, and just running a company and building a company and growing a company to accommodate more people and more work. That's a lot. That presents a lot of challenges just on its own. So we also need, as an industry, to help figure out how to support businesses that are trying to grow, and while they're trying to train and add a workforce at the same time.
Thanks, David. Michael, Clement Architectural Resource, one of our other partners, you want to chime in here?
Yes, a couple things. And Brett, going to your question before about kind of this upward pressure, it was for a long time, it was, if we build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. But it's actually becoming, they're coming, we better build it. Because at least in our world, and maybe it's the sea that we swim in at Architectural Resource, but there is a wellspring of interest in this from the consumer side of the equation. They're not waiting for the builders to figure it out. They're demanding it now. And this conference was so great because, I mean, the key is bringing the education up and really building up that capacity to make this happen. And then just a side note, I want to acknowledge Don's comments about, if the goal is decarbonization, we do have to step back and look at the nature of the grid and the dirtiness of the grid in Michigan, and which is where I'm really glad to have John Freeman on the line, because what we're finding, at least in our investigation, is that on-site renewable is the way that solution is addressed. Because if you're truly looking at carbon, it's a little more complicated. I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, Musings of an Energy Nerd. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's advocating doing nothing. Because every step we take, Martin Halliday, thank you very much. Every step we take has a carbon footprint. And what turns that around is if you do distributed generation, and this is where John and his crew are really making inroads in. So thank you, Don, for bringing that up, because that's something that, I mean, we all know that fossil fuels are not the future, but we have to look at the transition, how that's going to actually come to be, because we have a short window to make that happen. And it's not always necessarily rushing to electrification. And I hate to rain on the parade here, but electrification long-term is the goal. And if we figure out electrification, energy efficiency is going to be a moot point, because we have unlimited energy. I think the conversation in our lifetimes may actually change to generation, because what we tell our clients is conservation, utilization, and generation, in that order. If we find the holy grail, and there's looking at new solar technologies, there's a lot of different things that are being explored. We crack that one, it's a whole new conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for chiming in and giving a different side to the equation and some of the concerns and what you're seeing out there. That, yeah, you're seeing it. You're seeing the demand, and it's happening. And we're seeing it too. And who's going to do this work? So thanks for bringing that up. I want to. There's a lot of great questions in here. Some of them are very specific to some of our sponsors, to some of our speakers. So make sure you're in the Q&A there, folks, just kind of answering them directly. John Freeman, I don't know if you're still out there with us, but can you just speak a little bit to maybe policy? There's a question in here about, for example, like Michigan specifically, we're having, issues, of course, where we can't put solar on because we're capped, right? Or we can't do community solar. these are issues, net metering issues. These are happening all over the country, and sometimes they prevent people from doing work. So I know you're very articulate about this. If you want to chime in a little bit about just some thoughts there.
Well, I think we're seeing a situation where the future is accelerating really quickly, and this 2-hour program is exactly spot on about all the amazing changes that are going on with realization about energy and the cost it has on people and people's lives. The problem is that this change is running into, frankly, utilities that are trying to maintain their monopoly business model about being totally in control of the generation and distribution of energy. And that is an inherent conflict with what some of the changes that are going on. To be more specific, the 1% cap that we have in Michigan is the most draconian in the entire country. And that's simply because DTE and consumers, they don't want to lose customers to generating their own electricity. They don't like the fact that people are now empowered through the internet and through these smart meters to understand what their energy consumption is. And they're taking control over it and trying to make intelligent decisions that will affect the value of their homes and the savings and the health improvements to their families. And so we are in constant conflict in the Michigan legislature and within the Michigan Public Service Commission against consumers and DTE. And you just go right down the line. You mentioned two of them, Brett, the 1% cap, which limits the number of solar installs on roofs. We have the community solar, which is not allowed in Michigan, which means that a lot of low and moderate income people can't afford solar because of the upfront cost of it is so high. We don't have microgrid legislation in Michigan that allows, neighborhoods or allows hospitals or allow police departments to be able to, create their own little microgrid to have the more intelligent sharing of energy, and particularly when the grid goes down. And at the same time, one of the gentlemen speakers talked about the fact that as we move to electrification of cars, this is going to put a strain on the grid system. And that's right. But the irony is that by having solar, you're helping to maintain the grid and help building resilience into the grid, because just at the time when there's peak usage of electricity demand, particularly around air conditioning in the summer months, that is exactly when solar helps to build resiliency, because people are not looking to the grid to power their air conditioning when they can power from their own solar system. So we just have a clash of cultures right now. And the real irony, and this will be my final comment, is that, Brett, David mentioned the challenges of a lot of these businesses to be able to move in these new directions and to compete and learn these new technologies and to educate clients about these new techniques. These businesses have to work extremely hard to make a profit. The utilities, they just go to the Public Service Commission and ask for a guaranteed return on profit. So they're not even in the marketplace competing. And to me, that is just wrong, because when you have competition, that drives the private sector forward to develop new techniques, figure out ways of reducing costs, all of which is going to benefit homeowners and business interests. And yet the utilities don't have that. And I just think that's fundamentally wrong. And that's part of the problem we have. They've had this business model for the last 100 years, and they're not willing to give it up. And they have tremendous political power by virtue of the fact that they spend lots of money to help get legislators elected or to defeat legislators that challenge the prerogatives of the utilities.
Yeah, thanks, John. And Brian, I want to, I'm from Illinois Green Alliance, I want to bring you in. I mean, your state's passed some recent positive legislation in this regard. What are you all working on? What are you seeing? How does it kind of connect with these efforts?
I think it was interesting to hear John's comments about what's happening in Michigan, and certainly the same is true in Illinois. certainly we had some issues with our utility unduly influencing legislation, but what's really worked most successfully is when you can raise up the voices of the businesses that are in the industry doing this work. And we're looking to find more and more ways. How do you connect politicians, policymakers with the subcontractors, the architects, the real estate professionals who are actually really doing this job? Because I think it's critical to scale everything that's happening, show that it's working in their district, and then encourage them to pass policies to make it easier to do it in the future.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks again for the support from Illinois Green Alliance. So you can check them out there and all the great work they're doing. So we are really at our time right now. It is now 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I want to remind everybody that this conference, because of the situation that we're in, we broke it up across the year. So our hope is that this summer, we actually will be to some extent all together in person, maybe at some various breakout areas across Michigan and Illinois, or in just one area. At the rate things are looking, they're not looking so great right now, unfortunately, but I think by summer they will be looking better again. You never know what's going to happen, but we'll be looking at an outside event. We're going to be looking to do a big conference on just the general technology processes. What is net zero? How does everybody fit into it? And then later on in the fall, we're going to be looking at getting back into this policy conversation and what cities are doing across the country and the Midwest to some extent to help with these efforts for residential net zero. And so that's our goal for the rest of the year. I hope you will be able to join us. As I mentioned, all of the first annual, second and third, even the in-person events have all been recorded. They're listed up on the GreenHome Institute's YouTube channel. You can watch them. This session will be available to rewatch and reshare. And again, we just want to thank everyone again, especially our planning partners out there for all the work that they've always been doing on this. Michigan Energy Efficiency Contractors Association, DFD Architectural Resource, Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, Michigan Geothermal Energy Association, Illinois Green Alliance for doing this work and coming together to do more session, as well as our session sponsors, Mitsubishi Electric, April Air, Rheem, Indo, Aware, Build Equinox, Rockwell, and Panasonic. And thank you all for joining us and adding into this conversation. You really helped. There's been so much great dialogue in the chat. And so everybody have safe travels out there. Spring break is coming up. I know we'll be off for the next week. We don't have a session next week. We'll catch you all on our big indoor air quality smart ventilation panel in the following week as far as GreenHome Institute goes. So be well, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care.
Be sure to check out all of our courses available online that you can watch anytime and anywhere to pick up your CEUs. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to get weekly updates and stay up to date on green building science courses, webinars, and home tours. Thanks again.